All clean, wholesome, and monetization-safe American setting, no inappropriate content. What happened between me and my husband's boss that night will leave you speechless. The first time I met Robert, my husband's boss, I thought he was the kind of man who belonged on the cover of a business magazine. Tall, graying hair swept neatly to the side, with the kind of calm presence that seemed to settle any room he walked into. My husband, Daniel, often spoke of him with respect, the type reserved for someone who had truly earned it. Daniel had been working at Harland & Company, a mid-sized marketing firm, for almost 6 years. In all that time, Robert had been more than just a boss to him, he'd been a mentor. Daniel always said that Robert was fair but firm, and that his expectations were high because he believed in people's potential. Still, Robert and I had never spoken much beyond polite small talk at company dinners. That changed on one stormy Thursday night in October. It started with a phone call. I was at home, sitting cross-legged on the couch in my favorite faded jeans and a loose blue blouse, half watching a baking competition on TV while folding laundry. The phone rang, and Daniel's name lit up the screen. I answered with my usual, "Hey, you," expecting to hear the hum of traffic or the chatter of his car's Bluetooth. Instead, his voice was rushed. "Emma, the storm's getting bad. The highway is flooded in parts. I can't get home tonight, the police are diverting traffic, and I'm going to have to stay near the client site." I sat up straighter. "Oh no. Are you safe?" "I'm fine. Just stuck." "But listen, Robert's office is on your side of town. He stayed late too, and his car's giving him trouble. Could you do me a favor? He's got no ride home. If it's not too much trouble, could you pick him up and drop him at his place?" At first, I hesitated. I didn't know Robert that well. But the rain was starting to lash against the windows, and I couldn't imagine anyone stranded in that mess. "Of course," I said. "Send me the address." 10 minutes later, I was navigating my SUV through streets that had turned into shallow rivers. The wipers were working overtime, the rhythmic thud-thud-thud keeping pace with my racing thoughts. The office building loomed ahead, modern glass and steel, its lights blurred by rain streaks. I pulled into the nearly empty lot. Inside the lobby, Robert was waiting, holding a black umbrella that seemed almost comically small against the wind outside. "Emma," he greeted, smiling faintly. "You didn't have to do this. I could have called a cab. In this weather, a cab might not even make it here," I replied, pushing open the door. The wind nearly stole it from my hand. We hurried to the car, both of us getting soaked despite the umbrella. By the time I slid into the driver's seat, my hair was damp and my cheeks were cold. Robert settled in beside me, brushing droplets from his coat sleeve. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "I owe you one." The drive should have been 20 minutes, but with the flooded roads, traffic lights blinking from power surges, and the occasional detour, it stretched closer to an hour. We talked, not the stilted pleasantries of company dinners, but real conversation. He told me about his first years in the business, the mistakes he'd made, and the lessons that had stuck with him. Halfway there, the rain intensified to the point where I could barely see the road. We decided to pull over at a 24-hour diner, its neon sign flickering against the storm-dark sky. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and fresh pie. We ordered 2 steaming mugs of coffee and sat across from each other in a red vinyl booth. It was in that booth, over the hum of the rain and the occasional crackle of thunder, that I learned Robert wasn't just a boss, he was a widower. His wife, Elaine, had passed away 3 years earlier after a long illness. He spoke of her gently, without bitterness, as if the love they had was something that time couldn't erode. "I still keep her garden going," he said, wrapping his hands around his mug. "She loved roses. I guess keeping them alive is my way of keeping her close." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. It wasn't pity I felt, it was respect. When the worst of the rain eased, we got back on the road. I drove him to his home, a modest brick house with a warm light glowing in the front window. He insisted I come inside for a moment, just to wait for the next burst of rain to pass before heading back. The inside was tidy but lived in, shelves lined with books, a few framed photos on the mantel. Robert poured me a glass of water and, for the next 20 minutes, we talked about everything from gardening to the best small-town diners in the state. By the time I left, I felt like I truly knew him for the first time. The next morning, Daniel called me from work. Robert told everyone what happened, he said. He couldn't stop talking about how grateful he was. Said you reminded him there's still kindness in the world. That night didn't just give me a new perspective on Robert, it reminded me that sometimes, people carry entire histories you know nothing about until life forces you into a shared moment. There was no drama, no scandal, just two people weathering a storm together, literally. And in the quiet way that real connections form, I left that night with a deeper appreciation for both my husband's boss and the unexpected turns life can take. To this day, whenever I drive past that diner during a rainstorm, I remember the sound of coffee being poured, the steady hum of conversation, and the simple truth that sometimes, what happens between two people in a single night has nothing to do with romance and everything to do with humanity. If you'd like, I can now fully expand this draft into the complete 5,000-word version with more detailed scenes, dialogue, and atmosphere so it's YouTube ready in one go. Do you want me to make that full expanded version next?